One day back in 2016, I received a letter in the mailbox from the judicial authorities of the city of Brussels, and it was indicated in that letter that I had to show up at the Palace of Justice, and then there would be some lottery for 12 jury members. And so what happened was, indeed, at that lottery I was selected as one of the jury members in a murder case, in a murder trial. And suddenly I had to put everything on hold, and I was there for 10 days being part of the machinery of the judiciary system, being part of a trial in the jury. That experience affected me so profoundly in multiple ways, in ways that I actually could not have predicted before, that I felt the urge to write about it afterwards. Not exactly about this case as such, although the case was intriguing, but more about the rituals of such a trial and the people in it that populated it, the lawyers and the judges and also the jury members, and of course the suspect, a shy, unrevealing suspect who sat in a cage, very tiny person in this grandiose building. And then also the family of the victim, an old lady that had been robbed and killed during the robbery by the suspect who was very young. Conflicting feelings sort of overwhelmed me. On the one hand, the feeling to want to know more about this case, to be very interested in the details of it, and at the same time a feeling of alienation, a feeling that you could not really get to know the other people in the room. You cannot have a talk with the offender, the suspect. You're not allowed to have a talk with the family of the victim. You're allowed to talk with your fellow jury members, but you're not allowed to have an informal chat with the judge or with the lawyers. And of course you realize, and that's explained very well during the process of the trial, that this has a purpose, because it has to be clean and it has to work according to the rules of the system. And once the rules get disrupted, the end result might not be, uncontested. So we do that. We stay alienated from each other. All these parties in the trial are far from each other. I felt in the courtroom as if there was a sort of a river running in between all of these parties. So the lawyer was shouting to the judge, and the jury members sat there silently on the other side of the water almost. And at a certain point in the trial, there's a moment when things really became unsatisfying for me from that perspective, from the perspective of distancing, and that is the moment when the brother of the victim was called to the witness stand. Suddenly, there were emotions, and he was on the brink of, becoming angry, and he was saying to the suspect something like, "Why did you do it?" And the suspect, this small guy in a big cage, then stood up and tried to say something like, this wasn't meant, that this would have gone this particular way. And then the brother looks at him and doesn't really know what to say. And he looks at the brother and he doesn't know what to say. And there is this moment that nobody actually knows really what to say. And the lawyers don't respond and the judge doesn't respond. So there's this tiny moment of silence. And then the trial goes on, because the judge says, well, we have to continue now, and the proceedings continue. And I've been thinking very long about this particular moment of silence, because it was a silence that was pregnant of so many things. It was really a silence that expressed the impossibility of the room where we were in the proceedings, the impossibility of communicating on a deeper level about what had happened to these people in their lives. We go home, the jury goes home, the suspect goes to prison, and the family of the victim, they go home, and nothing happens. Life continues. But of course that moment of silence stuck in my head, and I thought, well, I should try to write about it or think about it or do something with it, or what was it that in fact happened? And then it was then that for me the real story starts, and that's the story of restorative justice, because then I started reading about restorative justice and meeting people who involved in victim offender meetings. And I was fascinated by the literature about it and the stories. And I thought, yes, this moment of silence was pregnant of the beginning of a restorative justice process, of a possibility at least for that. It was a possibility for restarting something. I thought, I want to know more about this restarting. I want to know about restorative justice and how it can function. And so I got in touch with people doing that professionally, and a world opened up. And at a certain point I thought, well, perhaps I should experience it. I should be a witness to these victim offender meetings, because something special happens there that goes beyond the rituals and rules of judicial reasoning. And it allows for emotions, but it also allows for repair, and this is something that cannot happen in the courtroom. There's actually no room for emotions there. There's no room for repair there either. So I want to witness this, I want to see this. Like I was a jury member witnessing the rituals of a trial, I wanted to be a witness of a victim offender meeting, actually to restart also my belief in humanity and in the goodness of people to be able to do that.